In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you all of my time-saving tips for writing primary school reports. Yes, it is that time of year again, the time of year where primary school teachers will be writing reports for their students. With that in mind, I wanted to share my top tips today for writing reports, ways to make the reports seem more personal, and different systems that I've used over the years to try and make my report writing a little bit quicker. If you are new to the 4Teachers channel, please take a quick moment to click the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up and turn on the notification bell so that you know whenever I post a teacher tip related video. Without further ado, let's get on with the top tips for writing your reports. Tip number one is something that I have used in various different forms over the years, and that is to create a keyword bank. I would take any of the words that you associate with your students and make a note of them, whether this is on a whiteboard or on a piece of paper, just any words that pop into your head that remind you of your students or you can relate to your students' learning. If your school uses a particular set of words or encourages the use of specific vocabulary, you can make a note of this as well. When you are actually writing your reports, if there is a moment where your brain just fogs up and you get writer's block and you can't think of what to say, just have a glance at the notes that you have made and hopefully one of those keywords will just jog your memory and help you to string together a sentence that best describes your student. I always like to keep a keyword bank close to me when I'm writing my reports. Tip number two is to try and keep your reports as personal as you can. I know that reports might start to sound a bit generic, especially if all of your students have done the exact same projects, but I always try really hard to have a think about the specific work that my students have done. For example, if you've done a project where your students have been researching different endangered animals and each child has created some kind of presentation about an animal of their choice, try to specifically mention the animal that they chose in their reports. For example, Jenny did a really good job of presenting her final project all about snow leopards. I'm really impressed with the self-management skills that she used and the way that she focused on her audience when presenting her work. Even though it might take a little bit longer to do, you've specifically mentioned a project that she's done, so you've kind of made your report feel very personal to that child. Although this does take a little bit longer to do, it will help to stop your reports from feeling repetitive and generic. It will make it feel much more unique for that child. Tip number three is to be honest in your reports, but also be balanced with the comments that you give. Hopefully, by the time you're writing reports for your students, you will have some kind of connection with the family of the child. With that in mind, you should be able to give quite real and honest information about the ability of that child, and the family should be prepared to receive information if the child has been struggling in certain subject areas, or if the child has been struggling with their social, emotional development. Hopefully they already have an idea of that. So the report that the family receives shouldn't be a surprise where they suddenly find out that the child is really struggling in a particular area of the curriculum. Hopefully you've kind of opened that communication previously. Even though we all know as teachers and parents that children develop differently in different areas at different times, it is still possible to find areas that that child has excelled in, whether that's to do with their emotional growth, a certain subject, or even just a passion or interest of the child. Tip number four is to have a phrase bank or a list of different phrases ready, typed on your computer for you to use for inspiration and occasionally for you to copy and paste to add to the reports. The only issue with this is that if you do it too much, your reports are all going to sound the same and they're not going to be personal to the child. However, in my opinion, there's nothing wrong with having a few phrases ready for you to select from. There are going to be overlaps with all children because hopefully you've been teaching something quite similar to the class, so don't be afraid to start building that, especially in your first couple of years of teaching. Tip number four is to find a report writing system that works for you. You might find that other teachers in your school are using different systems for writing reports. Some people might have a generator that generates comments and they might be selecting from that. Other teachers might be choosing to focus on completing all of their maths report section comments first and then moving on to their English report section comments. Some teachers prefer to work through their students systematically, so they prefer to work through the register and complete an entire report for one child before moving on to the report of the next child. I've heard that people find that makes it feel as though they're ticking children off a list as opposed to completing a subject, which might not feel like you've completed as much as you actually have. I would say that regarding that, every single year of my teacher life, I have done things in a different way. way. Sometimes I like to work through a subject, so I like to do all of my maths and get that out of the way because I find that a little bit harder to write, and then move on to a different subject, finishing off with the personal comments, which I find to be the most enjoyable part of writing reports. It doesn't matter what system they're using, you develop a system that works for yourself, and you find a way to work through your reports that makes you feel as though you're making progress with them. These days, I actually like to write out a list of different subjects, so I'll write the subjects down the side, I'll write maths, English, personal, and then any other subjects that I've been teaching. I will create a grid and add the students' names, and I will leave spaces to tick them off as I have completed each section of the reports. For me, having this visual way of seeing my students' names next to the report sections always makes me feel a sense of achievement once I start to make my way through the list and tick off the names. Top tip number 6 for you is to make sure that you evidence all of the points that you make in your reports. You can't just throw a statement out there and not provide some form of evidence to explain how you know that or where you have seen a child do that. I am definitely guilty of doing this in the past. I might have given comments like, Daniel has developed many skills, I am really proud of his progress. I need to make sure that I evidence and explain which skills Daniel has improved in and where I have seen evidence of that as a teacher. At the end of the day, if you are going to sign your name at the end of a report document, you need to make sure that you have some accountability for the statements that you have made in the report. If I have seen evidence of Daniel using a wide range of punctuation at the end of his sentences, and as a result of that, I believe he has improved some of his grammar skills, I can use that as specific evidence. So I can say, Daniel has really improved his creative writing. I can see this through his improved use of a wide range of different punctuation. So just make sure that you remember to evidence all of the points that you make. Just to finish off these tips at the end of the video, I want you to know that report writing is a skill, and it's a skill that takes a really, really long time to develop. I don't necessarily think that you start your teaching journey able to confidently write school reports. I think it is something that takes a really long time to get your head around the system and the language expectations and of course the curriculum expectations of your children as well. So report writing is something that I have personally found to have gotten a little bit easier with every year that I've been teaching. Hopefully the same thing will happen for you as well. Thank you so much for watching today's video. If you have found any of the tips in this video to be useful or helpful, please consider giving it a thumbs up. The thumbs up really helps to support the channel. If you have any further questions or suggestions for new videos that you would like me to make, please leave them down below in the comments. Thank you for watching and good luck with your report writing.